Well, it's another episode here with Wake Up with KC, and today I have a very special guest. I was fascinated when I received some information about her, and she talks about rebirthing, and she also shared some experiences that she had in spirituality and a recent novel, Awake, The Legacy of Akara. So I got curious and I reached out to her, said, hey, I would love to have you as a guest on my show. So please welcome Dayna Dunbar. Dayna!
Hey, good to be
You
here.
do have a fascinating story, and I can't wait for you to share it.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
So, what I mean, I know you're on a mission, you shared that. But what inspired all this? How did this get birthed? And explain the rebirthing to us.
Okay. Yeah, so I was pretty lost in my life. Had always had a little seed spark of wanting to be a writer, but just insecure. Like Sue Monk Kidd, one of my favorite authors, talks about her. She had a failure of courage before she started writing, and that's where I was, just kind of lost and trying to find my path in the world, and nothing was working. And at the same time, I had a job and whatever. And I ended up going to camping in Sedona, Arizona in the summer of 1994 with my then girlfriend. And we went to this sacred spot, 3 miles up a dirt road, park on the side. I had the instructions from a friend of mine who was at work, this really cool kind of hippie girl. And she's like, you got to go do this. I was living in San Francisco at the time. So drove out, went up there, parked, went up to a plateau, which was surrounded by spires, red rock spires and formations all around, totally camping by ourselves. Now you can't even go up there and stay, let alone have a fire, which you campfire totally alone. Very different now. It was amazing. And we ended up going one day down to town, which in Sedona, you go to the New Age bookstore. Like if you go to Hawaii, you do a luau. There you go to the New Age bookstore. And did a meditation with a guy who ended up being somebody who wrote a book about ETs in Sedona, and he was doing a normal meditation with us. And at the end, he said, we're calling in a mothership. And Chris and I just looked at each other, to hover over the building. And we just looked at each other and we're like, what? This is so cool. This is so Sedona. But we didn't really think much of it. But that night we got back to the campsite, and it got dark, and looked up in the sky, and we were playing this cool music, very, very ethereal, beautiful music. We were just in this really beautiful space. We'd been in nature for 3 or 4 days and just like steeped in this presence and this beauty. And I was looking up, just looking up at the stars, and all of a sudden one of them, and it was like Scorpio was on the horizon, the constellation Scorpio, and it looked like one of the stars in Scorpio just started to move, and it started to swim away from us like this, like an S shape. And for some reason, I think just because I was so connected in that moment, I just said, without even thinking, I said, we see you if you want to speak with us. And Chris had seen it too. She turned around and she saw it, and she's like, oh my God. And we were like, but something just came out of my mouth, and it was just like, we see you. And immediately it turned back and started kind of swimming back toward us, this S shape swimming. And it came, and the campfire was in front of us. We're sitting on lawn chairs, and it came, and it just was right in front of us, this spinning light of a little bit light orange hue. That it just looked like light. Couldn't see any kind of particular material that it was made of, but it was hovering in the distance, and but large, a large light. And then all of a sudden we see 2 other smaller lights, and I don't know if they were smaller ships or if they were just further away, but they were kind of sentries, almost like up here, and then the big one was here. So they kind of made this triangle in the sky. And and I was really scared. I mean, I had been meditating for some time because I had chronic illness, and so that's what started me meditating. And it was really a mindfulness kind of thing, heal your mind so you can heal, that kind of meditation. So this was very new for me, but my girlfriend had an experience where she traveled, did astral projection one time in her life. It just happened to her. And so I said, they want to talk to you, to Chris. And on the campsite, there was a medicine wheel, made, the Native American wheel made of rocks, and ceremonial wheel. And it had been there when we got there. Beautiful place. And so she went out to the medicine wheel and laid down in the medicine wheel, because that's how she meditated, lying down, and to communicate with them. And immediately when she laid down, like just within really moments, I saw a light go from her body up to the ship and then circle back down. It was like this light that was connecting her to the ship. And I got scared, and I said, "You be good to her." And I heard a voice. For the first time, I heard a voice, and it said, it kind of was like, "Don't worry, we will." Like with a little bit of a giggle, almost like a smile. "Don't worry, we will." And immediately I knew that I recognized the voice. For the previous 6 months, in my meditation, and again, this was all very different for me. This wasn't something that happened to me a lot, or still even happens. I had a being who was coming to me, and I was like in my 20s, so I was just like, I was just so overwhelmed. Like, and I told friends, like, every time I sit to meditate and do my mindfulness, there's this being, and it's a female being, and it just is this feeling of energy, and she feels like she's right there, and there's so much love, and she just sits with me while I meditate. And we talk some, but she told me her name was Kaya, and I knew that that was the being that was talking to me from the ship. And I said, "Kaya, is that you?" And she said, "Yes, it is." And later I realized that she had been preparing me that whole time for this encounter, because there's no time, there's no linear time. So for her, to go back before this experience was kind of, she's not bound by time. So it was very comforting for me, and I relaxed, and I no longer was afraid, because her energy was so powerful and beautiful every time I'd experienced her, and it was again. And so we sat there, and I had this telepathic conversation while Chris was having her experience on this ship and her energy body. It was just amazing. And I asked Kaya, I said, what are you all doing here, course? And she said that they are that Earth is a really hot spot in the universe, that it's like, which way is it going to go? Very unsure. It could go, evolve, or we could kill each other off. And there's not only them, but other beings who are really interested in what's happening here. And not only that, but they're holding as well. She did say they're not going to intervene. That's not what they're about, but they are holding the light for the planet as they're observing. So, and then it was just, we just sat there in a lot of love, and because that was that's what the teaching was. It wasn't even verbal. It was just this incredible love. And especially like loving me, like it was like this very beautiful personal love, and it's so powerful. And so finally I see the light come, go away from the ship, and Chris stands up and walks back to me, and she tells me her experience on the ship, and it was profound. She met a male being who we think was probably in some kind of suit so that she could handle being in his presence, because he didn't really have features, and he had like 3 fingers, but he didn't really have facial features. So we think that, and his skin was completely smooth. And so, but she had a similar experience of deep loving experience with this being. And he was going to take her down, and she was in a kind of almost like an observation room, like a small auditorium, and he was taking her down some steps to go to a place that looked like it was like an observation stage, and other beings could come in and watch whatever was happening in there. So he was holding her hand and taking her down the steps, and she got scared because of like probes and all that kind of stuff. And he said, we don't have to go any further. And they just sat on the steps, and just it was just the 2 of them. But she said that she felt like if she had continued to go down, that there would have possibly been other beings who would have come in, and they would have possibly been observing her and stuff like that. But she got afraid, and so it was just like, no, we can just stay here. And they had a similar conversation, but really it was about the connection, the loving. So when she got back and told me that, I told her I was in the middle of this experience with Kaya, and that I needed to finish. And obviously I wanted to have that experience that she had. So I went out to the medicine wheel, and I sat down in my meditation position, which was, crossed legs. And I said, I looked up at the ship and I said, I'm ready to come up. And I heard Kaya almost like, hold on just a moment. It was like, hold on. And kind of, I could tell there was a conference going on. Like they were speaking to each other, these beings. I don't know how many were on the ship. And she came back to me and she said, you can't come up. And I said, why not? You got to. And she said, you're not ready. It would be way too much for your system to do that. And I was like, okay. I said, well, can you come here? And she said, yes, I can. And I really understood that if I hadn't asked her to come, she wouldn't have come to me. But so immediately I closed my eyes, because that's how I'd always experienced her in the past. I closed my eyes, and immediately I felt her presence. And then I realized I could open my eyes, and I could see her. And she was in her energy body, and she was like, part of her face, that was actually the right side of her face, was like a little filament of light. So that just was an outline, is all I could see, because it was dark, and she was just her energy body. And but I could see her, and she had no hair, and very long and lean, and but beautiful. And I could see this part of her shoulder too. And she was so interested and present and with me, and so excited to be with me. She reached out at one point to touch me, because she wanted to hold me. I could tell she just so wanted to hold me. I felt like it was as if I ran into in the woods like a baby leopard or something. And I'd be like, oh my God, this is amazing. You're so beautiful. You're so cute. And she was like that with me. Like she just wanted to touch me. So she put her hand in right here, and it went into my body. And immediately my energy body was like this. I could not handle her hand. Her frequency was way too high for me to be able to tolerate. And so I said, you can't touch me. And I felt like she was disappointed. She pulled her hand away. And then possibly the coolest thing that happened the whole night was the smoke from the campfire wafted over her body, and I could see her completely. Just like, if you hold a flashlight into smoke of a campfire, you can see the beam. The smoke went over her, and I could see her face and her body. It was so amazing, because I just was like, breathtaking. So so then we just sat there in just like loving bliss, in communion for I don't know how long. And finally I said, I should get back to Chris. I should probably get back to Chris. And she said, yes, you should. And then she was gone. And and I went back and we just sat there and watched them. And they kind of almost put on this show for us. They were just like going all over the place and doing things that are impossible, you know, physics, what you think of as macro physics, impossible to do, going in and out of, you know, existence, it seemed. And till till 3:00 in the morning, we just sat there and watched them. And then we went to bed finally. And the next day, went to this place and journaled the whole thing, like wrote out the whole thing together. And that was when I got that this information came through that I was going to write about these beings, and I was going to write a novel, that I was going to write stories about them, to talk about the conscious evolution on Earth, that we can become what they are, because they are highly, highly evolved beings.
Oh gosh, I'm getting hit.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. And so that's the rebirthing.
Whoa.
So, yeah. So when I started writing, which was I have other books. I'm award-winning published novelist by Ballantine prior, because I had to write, had to become a writer to be able to write about an awakened planet. I had to like get my chops going, you know, with my writing, and also really grow into spiritually the message that needed to be shared. So that took 20 years. And finally I was given like, okay, it's time to write this story. It's time to finally write about Kaya. And what came through was this planet, because I wanted to make it fun, sci-fi thriller, you know, like it's like the Da Vinci Code meets Ancient Aliens meets
I love it.
right? It's like that's the feel of the book. It's like very it's thriller, it's fast paced, and you know, page turner kind of a feel. So the planet Akara is where these beings are from. This is a word that we made up, my co-author and I, because I have a co-author on it as well. She's brilliant. And on Akara, 1,000 years before the novel starts, we were experiencing the ravaging era. Okay, so that's when greed and environmental disaster and people at odds with each other and conflict and selfishness and all that stuff was in you know, the egoic consciousness was absolutely you know, running everything. And it got so bad that finally a group of people called the Wise Ones left the whole thing, just said done, and went into vital zones, which were some of the only places left on the planet which were even livable, and started having awakenings. And that was the rebirthing coming. So the ravaging era, they were in the ravaging era, and then they started to wake up. And when enough of them awakened, it created a critical mass of consciousness that caused a shift on the whole planet. And so that's how it saved them from extinction. So there's like, and that's a lot taken from Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who created transcendental meditation. He did experiments of monks and people meditating and praying in populations, and it changed. Absolute numbers would change for social detectors for like crime rates, things like that. You know, hospitalizations all went down when a certain number of people, percentage of people, were in a consciousness of love and meditation and prayer. So that's what happens on this planet. Enough people wake up that it creates the rebirthing. And so then it's 1,000 years later when the novel starts. And so they're fully into the rebirthing, totally awakened, just like Kaya, the being I met, and are able to space travel and end up coming to Earth, because there's a time capsule planted in a Mayan pyramid that one of their ancestors during the ravaging era came to Earth in a spaceship and planted a time capsule that's going to destroy the planet. And so they have to come and And it's actually the reason that December 21st, 2012, the reason that the world didn't end is because the Akarans came and found the time capsule and saved the Earth. So that's the idea for the novel.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm like intrigued.
Yeah. So it's
And
like Mayan pyramids, it's like this
right.
geo quest, and it's this like finding clues and all that. And it's awakened beings who are coming to Earth, and not only to save the Earth from this mass weapon of mass destruction that their ancestor planted, but also to help us wake up.
I think that's um the part of why I started this podcast is, and now I get to have people like you on my show to share your experience about this awakening. Um and there's like a misconception of who we are, and the beliefs and the programs and the emotional energetic traumas that's been going on from the beginning of our creation.
Yes.
If
Yes.
you look at the history and in science and then the spirituality of how it all is in tangent together, it's mind blowing. And I'm like, why? Like the evidence speaks for itself. Pyramids, you have several, not just the pyramids in Egypt and in Peru, but there's pyramids in Turkey, there's pyramids in Asia, there's all these. And I was like, they knew there had to be somebody very highly evolved to know specifically the diameters, the everything lining up with the solar system, the stars, and the planets. And you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like,
The whole idea came to me about the Mayan pyramids and the time capsule because I was at a Mayan exhibit at a museum in San Diego, and my girlfriend's uncle was there, and he's like this guy from Arkansas, just this totally regular, non-spiritual guy, country guy from Arkansas, right? And we're looking at this stuff, and I said, how could they have possibly done this? And he's like, oh, they got help from aliens. Just like it was matter of fact, just like this matter of fact, the last person on earth I would have thought to hear that from. And it was right then that I thought, oh my gosh, that's the story. The aliens, because people know this. It's like we know this somehow, that we were served and helped, and these ancient civilizations had some contact. And so I was like, oh my gosh, it's gone mainstream. That's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to write about, is how the earth was saved. But it was by alien intervention. The alien intervention caused the possible end of the world. But then evolved alien intervention saves us. So that was exactly when when that came through, because yeah, it's like even people, like so many people now believe in alien life as a reality.
well, because I guess it's part of us waking up, but there are some that are, in that religion program.
Yeah, there are. I mean,
And
what you
I'm
gonna do?
like looking at them now, like, are you kidding me? Like, oh, if
Yeah.
you really knew what you were reading, you're speaking about aliens.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and it's interesting because just like it's like we're all at different levels of consciousness and awakening, different levels of access. Like you channel beings, I don't do that, but I have other openings, so different people are, at different places on this planet. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't get how it'd be like, I'm not looking at that, but that's what happens. It's
Oh
a
my god! And this was like I started channeling, I guess, in 2014. And at first I felt like it was Native American, like the indigenous, like um Cherokee, that those indigenous
Yeah.
tribes, because from my understanding, I have like the Cherokee in my lineage.
Yeah.
So it just felt natural to me. So I was like, okay, I'm channeling. I wish I knew what they were saying.
Mm.
Um, but what hit the spot with me that like seemed like a vortex opened up. I was actually with now my current boyfriend. It I had the most amazing orgasmic, like ecstasy, euphoric orgasmic experience. And something happened, something took over, and it was like this huge white laser just shot up through me past the ceiling. My eyes are closed. It's dark.
Mhm.
We had a little candle, but I'm seeing electricity and like it was like lightning and electricity just filling up the whole room around, like coming out of this white laser. And I'm like convulsing.
Mm.
And the next one, like we were having sex, and then all of a sudden, and then I'm sitting on top of him.
Mm.
I reached that same kind of orgasm, and bam, somebody comes in me. It's like I stepped out, and it was like a more intense channel that I never experienced before. And when I came to, I was like, "What the hell just happened?"
Mm. You had a little tantric experience there, huh? Yeah.
I, the expression on my boyfriend's face was priceless.
Mm.
But he goes, "Do you have any idea what you said?" And I'm like, "No." And I'm like, "Oh my God." Like, it got to the point where it was every time we were, and he was getting like, "I don't want to do this."
Mhm.
Like, it's
Right.
interfering kind of thing. So I'm like, "Well, I'll have a powwow with whoever it is because I don't know what to tell you. Like, I don't know how to deal with this. I
Yeah.
just do it."
Yeah.
But it's been interesting. And I know they don't mean harm.
Right. Yeah, it's just the veil is, quite lifted these days. And that's why, we are on that cusp of, either going into like we're in the ravaging era and we're on the cusp of going into a rebirthing. And so what's really important for us and people who are watching is to know that, to stay in our awareness and knowing, because it can look, the appearances can look really freaking intense and scary, and even aliens come in and everybody's it's the U.S. military like talking about aliens. It's like the veils are lifting a lot, and so to stay grounded in the knowing that goodness and peace and joy and love are the truth, and not get too caught in appearances, because it's a little freaky right now. That's why I wanted to write a book that shows what it would look like to be and live in an awakened world, and a world in which everybody is understands that they're one. There's no other. You're just an other self. But you're not other than me. And so that's why, really, the main reason why I wrote the book and why I was guided to write the book, which I would love to show you.
Yes.
As well.
Ooh, I cannot wait to get that.
Yeah, so this is the main character has two eye colors. His name is Mobius, and he's a young Akaran, and trying to get into the Discovery Corps, their space program at the beginning. So he has two eye colors, and so yeah, it's but I wanted to show like because if we only are looking at in entertainment, and in what we read, if we're only looking at the worst possible parts of humanity, which is a lot of what is being shown these days. I mean, you look at the most popular shows like Game of Thrones even. And I know everybody loves it. You can love Game of Thrones. It's fine. But I'm just saying, like, if that's what all we're really seeing is the most kind of base, like greed filled, power hungry, ego driven, conflict oriented, interactions between humanity, um, it really starts to get into our psyche.
It goes into the subconscious, which is like a motherboard
Yeah.
that stores like what you see and what you hear. And there you get that same thing. You could read that in the Bible.
Yeah, in the Bible, in the news,
Yeah.
like
And I'm like, oh
everywhere.
my gosh, like how can you know, you said something earlier of, how you're interpreting the inspiration of what you've already imagined in here. You got the visual of what it can be like here on. It's the same with me. I had a vision, and when I first started the podcast before I went like virtual, because
Hmm.
now I got both. Um, I was like, y'all, if you could just for one moment think about, this all this negativity. It takes up so much energy to operate in.
Yeah,
But if you could take the most pleasant, joyful experience, it didn't you didn't have to have some like work for that energy. It just instantaneously fills you up.
that's right. Yeah.
I'm like, if we could all get along and be nice to one another, it will change because we're all energy, we're all connected to everything in this planet. We have seven chakras. Earth has seven chakras. Hello.
Yeah.
So if we change our chakras, get our chakras operating in alignment and balance, can you imagine what it would do to this planet Earth that we live on? The weather would change for the better. They're all talking about climate change. I'm like, yeah, because of the hate, the greed, all that negative energy
Yeah.
is it's the Earth reacting to our energy.
Yeah.
It's cause and effect. That's why I keep like preaching.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. It is. And yeah, it's important that we have stories. And my mission is to not only put this story out, but other stories and support other people in their storytelling and their art that is not ego driven. Because right now, Hollywood and the publishing industry are primarily ego driven storytelling. And we have always been storytellers, human beings, since like we were cave people, Paleolithic times. When we could first start to even have language, we started to tell stories, and they've always had a mythic place in our race, as well as an aspirational visionary, like where are we going, what's our possibilities here, what is creation about. And now it's been overtaken, and storytelling has been hijacked for by the ego. And so really I'm like really trying to spread the message to people to support conscious storytelling. If you see something on Netflix that's conscious, like there's a TV show out of Turkey right now on Netflix called Another Self. That's why I said that before. Another Self. It's brilliant. It's spiritual storytelling. It's so good, but it's hip and it's cool and it's modern and it's edgy. And that's not what I feel like I'm trying to do too. And so if you see conscious storytelling, please read it, support it, like so that it's because it starts to convince people in charge, who have the distribution companies who are publishing the big books and have the money and the distribution to get it all over the world, that if there's enough sales, if there's enough support, if there's enough money behind it, because that's what they're paying attention to, then we can start to see more entertainment that isn't scarring our souls and is actually.
Yeah, are up in here, but then, being an emotional, intuitive transmedium that's also highly, highly empathic,
Mhm.
it's I had to stop watching the horrors because I just like that. I can't stand negative energy. I have to limit my news, like, because I
Yeah.
want to be aware, but I'm also, I started like when I meditate, I sort of talk to my higher self and the spirit guides. Sometimes I don't get answers, or sometimes a word will come in and whatnot. And I'm like, hmm. I started watching The Lord of the Rings,
Mm-hmm.
and the elves, I when they started speaking in that language,
Mm-hmm.
I was getting hit. I'm like, what is this about? Now, I watched it a long time ago, but I just recently started watching it. And once I heard that language, I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, that sounds and feels familiar, but I can't quite connect the dots. So I got really paying attention and waiting for them to speak that language because I wanted more information. Like, what's going on? What's the connection? And why am I getting hit when I hear
Mm-hmm.
them speak in
Yeah.
that language?
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, who knows? Maybe Tolkien downloaded an actual language that, that,
Did that actually exist in those times? And whoever the writer was of this book
yeah.
channeled, and everyone's like, well, he got inspired. It's all made up language. I'm like, what if it isn't?
Yeah. Yeah.
What if,
Yeah, I mean, what a total visionary. Yeah, and that's some really powerful. There's the dark side and all that kind of stuff, but it's
there's
still
a dark side in everything, really, but that's the
yeah,
polarity in the duality that we live in.
right.
It's labeled as good and evil or good and bad.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it sets up kind of a false conflict because honestly, there's not really good and bad. That's duality, and we are non-dual. There's only one
Yeah.
happening, and the duality is an illusion. It's a dream that we're having to have an experience of duality. But it's that material those is really powerful storytelling.
Tell me about it. I love the mystical and the fairies and the elves and
No,
dwarves. And I'm
yeah,
like, you
I know.
know,
It's really that's really fun stuff for sure.
oh
Yeah.
yeah. And just the scenery is amazing. I'm like, wow, we could have that here too, if y'all
Yeah.
wake up.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I find that science fiction and fantasy like that are the genres that are really talking about and showing some of these principles and ideas that are way more powerful than we think. And there's a lot of mystical things going on that we can have access to. That's where we're really seeing, like it's called visionary storytelling. And, that's where we're really seeing these visions of what's possible. So yeah, it's amazing to have some of that. I've been watching the Wheel of Time. Did
Oh
you watch?
yeah. I
Yeah,
think I recognize the Wheel of Time. Isn't that a new thing that's on is it on Amazon or
it's on Amazon, and
it's
it's a
where
lot,
these kids have spiritual gifts.
right.
And this one woman, she's redhead, hello, um, is protecting them and guiding them to this place.
Yes, 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 yeah, and it's like in a fantasy, world, and really well done, and based on some books. A lot of violence. The first two episodes are like really too much.
Oh yeah.
Much violence, but there's some really cool stuff in there, and to be able to see like beings have this incredible kind of power, and it's just it opens your mind. It just opens the mind of like, oh, there's more possible here.
Right. Like telepathy. Then there's like airbender and water and like I honestly feel deep down we have that capability of being able to do that. It's energy.
Right,
Energy turns into matter.
right. Yeah, that's where we're headed for sure. And it's the cities, the rishis, the ancient yogis talked about these powers. They called them cities, and the cities are not the point of awakening. The point of awakening is oneness and harmony, and And not just that, but also like on Akara, and I got downloads for years. I was getting downloads of what this civilization was like. I was getting like really powerful downloads about unlimited free energy as and like a actual technology that I put into the novel.
Like Tesla.
Called Taurus energy, right? Exactly. And but it was downloading, and there were things about it that I didn't even know had names and stuff. And then I would tell people like it's this shape like this, and it goes like this, and this energy source. And this one guy who's really advanced being, he said, "Oh, that's a Taurus." Taurus. And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. So they have Taurus technology, which is unlimited free energy. And also how they do space travel and quantum healing as well. And so I was getting these downloads for so long, and really this is where we're going. The cities are part of that. The powers of being able to, the way that we think space-time works now is so limited. So that's part of it, but it's really oneness consciousness, and then the possibility of what happens after awakening. It's not just sitting around staring at our navels being nice to each other. It's like discovery and endless amounts of like creativity and like cooperation and collaboration and space travel and God knows what. I mean, what could we do if we all actually woke up? So yeah, it's just incredible to think about. And I want people to think about it more. Like really like hold in your consciousness, what would it be like for us all to be awake? And if that cynical part comes up, that part that's like, oh, like that could never happen, look at Donald Trump or whatever, then just like, oh, hey, that's ego. That's ego. Like
Yeah.
into this innocence and this knowing and this place inside that you were as a little child, and that we knew the joyful presence that is with just a child before all the conditioning. And that's what we really are, and
Mm-hmm.
grow up and have that childlike nature, but then become spiritually mature and awake. Woo! What a combination. Like unstoppable. But that innocence is so important.
Well, that's why I like, they always talk about the inner child needs healing and the inner child needs this from the trauma and, the abuse and whatnot. I'm like, you know what? I mean, I actually sat with myself. I'm like, I'm sorry that, things happened to us when we were a kid, when we were little and everything. But you know what? Let's do something different. Let's go have fun. So I bring my inner child out. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, when I get around Christmas time or, Halloween, my inner child comes out. Let's decorate. Let's do this. When I go on trips and whatnot, I'm like, yeah, I went snorkeling. I snorkeled
Oh,
for
yeah.
an hour and a half and I
Uh-huh.
felt so like, oh my God, like I got a golden hidden treasure underneath the water
Mhm.
and I just did not want to come out. I just want to stay.
Yep.
I felt like I was a mermaid.
Yes. Yes.
I
Yes.
felt
Yes.
at home.
Yes. All that, and all of that you said is so like whole. It's like wholeness and being conscious and present. It's not getting drunk off your ass to have fun. You know what I mean? It's like we don't have to do that. There's a way to celebrate life and to be in alignment with your truth and your joy. It comes from a place of love and innocence. And it's one of those things where this is another thing that there is nobody talking about that almost in storytelling. It's all so like everybody's so cynical to death. It's like
Oh my gosh. That,
it's like
and the thing about it that, I don't know if you realize this, but I came to a realization. I'm like, wow, we're even conditioned about what love is.
mhm.
See, when I had these experiences, even with the channeling and, getting the downloads and not even understanding, some of them are like movie screens or pictures that show up in my mind's eye and whatnot. But the most amazing, euphoric ecstasy not orgasm, but it's a euphoric orgasmic ecstasy, like where I felt so like high, drunk, stoned, all wrapped in up in one, but it came from within.
Mhm.
And it was just felt so amazing. And I was like, I don't know what this is, but man, this feels amazing. Like more than amazing. You can't even really put it in words.
Mhm.
But when I came to and then, conversations were coming up and it was like, that's love. You are love. It's already in you. And then I happened to meet with somebody and they're like, your energy is so intense. Like it's like love that's so like so big and huge. And I'm like, yeah, because I'm love. I love that life. I love the earth. I love, animals. I love like being in this love state of frequency, vibration, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And it's like, why doesn't everybody else have this? Like, what's
Mhm.
wrong? Like, why don't you feel like this?
Yeah.
And then I experience like being in this state, it repels people.
Mhm.
They
It can.
can't stand it. And I'm
Yep.
like, well,
It's
sorry, it sucks to be you right now, but I'm gonna keep on going now.
It repels people, but it also draws people too. It depends on, it's like different people are ready, and different people are drawn to different levels and vibrations. Just like with Kaya, like I couldn't handle the amount of love and the light that she was at that time. Like I was just not prepared to handle that energetically. And so, and as it was, it took me a year of like trying to get grounded to deal with what I did experience. It was like,
Really? A year after?
oh yeah. I mean, it was just like my whole world was just turned completely upside down because I was like, this was not part of my reference, in the past. Like I didn't even, I believe there were aliens, but it wasn't something that I thought about. Like it had to be like, there has to be life in the universe other than us, just the sheer numbers. I was in that place. Like just the sheer numbers, there has to be life other than humanity in the universe. That's where I was. But like having an encounter and they're here and all of that, I was like, oh, that's not part of my reality at all. So I was just like completely blown away. And I had to, my whole reality had to shift as far as what was possible, what was my life about. I mean, it changed my life because it became about, oh, I'm supposed to be writing. I'm supposed to be writing stories, and I'm supposed to eventually write about these beings. And
Right.
it was this driving force all of a sudden in my life. And and then I started having downloads of these different technologies and sacred geometry and quantum science and all kinds of stuff that's in the novel about these beings and what we can be.
So I mean, I know the book you had a name in it, but did you ever ask Kaya, well, where are you from?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they're from the Pleiades. I got the Pleiades. That's pretty much what I
Oh,
got.
so Palladians.
Pleiades. I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Pleiades.
Yeah. And so in the book, they are from the Pleiades constellation, which is, my favorite. I have a Subaru, which is Subaru means the Pleiades, and in Japanese, it's on purpose. I like, any company that would have that as their logo, the Pleiades. But yeah, so I think that's where they're from. I didn't get a whole lot of like information, like you're saying when you channel, it's like,
You
sometimes
are
you don't
a
get all
star
the
seed
details.
too. You saw from Pleiades
Mhm.
connected to Kaya.
Yeah. Hmm. Yes, very much so.
I'm getting like hit. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
it's like I want to say I feel her presence.
Hmm. Yeah. Yes, she's right here with me. In fact, I've kind of gotten recently this came to me, and it's one of those things that I'm still trying to process and like, am I gonna like fully believe that? But it's a because it's just one of those. It's like I have to process it, but it's like it seems like I've been given guidance that Kaya is me in a future, self. You know, it's like.
Because there is no time. You think it's a future, but it's
Right, there's no time. It's another
yeah, but it's also
dimensional.
we're multidimensional beings too.
Yes. Yeah.
So you could like being here, it's like, oh, that's my future self.
Right.
And I'm like curious to find my future self because I
Mhm.
found out that I come from Sirius B,
Mhm.
A and B. B is more on the aquatic,
Yeah.
dolphins, mermaids, whales, and all the aquatic animals kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, and I'm like, well, that makes sense because I love being around the water. I love the ocean. I love,
Right.
but I'm also, an earth sign. So I like being in the mountains too.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
it's like I get grounded no matter where. Yeah, but I'm more drawn to the ocean and the water than anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I am deeply drawn to the ocean as well. But yeah, so I think that's what's going on. I think that she's a
Your spirit
higher
guide.
dimensional being, that is like somehow I am that too. I mean, it's all one, but in the levels of dimension, like this life stream, is also living at that dimension as Kaya. And so, yeah, that's wild because she's amazing. Wow.
You're amazing, girl. Are you kidding me?
It's like, oh my God, that's what it's that, that's what I am. It's like, oh my gosh. I think that's part of why I'm like, I don't know if I accept that because it's just like, is that possible? Even me, I've had all these visions. I've met her. I've seen this possibility of us awakening,
So
but as
why not?
yeah, well, as a human being, it's like our humanity. We still have like stupid ego stuff, like blah blah blah.
I know. I want to channel like well, I don't want to say it out loud. I'll email it to you because I was thinking about it while I was listening to the Elvish or Elven language.
Mhm,
Something hit me, and I thought a thought. I was like, oh, I wonder if we could do that. That'd be
mhm,
cool. I'll be more than willing to do that.
mhm.
Speak in that language because their words are very powerful.
Yeah, they are.
And we're spelling every day
Yep.
with our words,
Yeah, it's true.
casting out spells, casting out curses based on the words that we speak. So I'm like, I try to be very careful with, because once you speak it, you can't take it back.
Yeah, and it's the stories that we're telling. We're always telling stories. It's like, okay, this is what this happened, and this is how it happened, and that's what is going on, and that person is like that, and those people are this way. These stories in our mind create our reality. And
But the thing is, we're living in the past because we're
yeah,
repeating it.
yes. And the keep in the judgments and all of that. So that's why it's like, oh, there is the human egoic, thinking. It's a mind just like blah, 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 blah. And so to see through that and not buy into it, because it seems so personal because it's in your head. But it's all lies. It's not true, the judgments or the fears or the anger, the doubts. It's all just lies of the ego.
Programmed.
It's all programmed. So to see through it and to keep seeing through it and to know that that's not the truth, even though it's in your own actual head, it's just, we're challenged here. Apparently, this reality is the most challenging in the universe, or of any of because there's such polarity. There's such intense polarity.
And about reincarnation.
Oh yeah.
So I've heard this several times. Like when we're in our soul form, we're the most free. But then when we choose to come down and come back into a human, like this is Dr. Wayne Dyer. I love him. He's one of my
Yes.
mentors. He
Yeah.
goes, "You're ghosts, and this is your machine."
Right.
Plain
Right.
and simple, okay?
Gee. Yeah.
And it it's like, okay, I get that. I'm a divine, I would say divine spiritual being, sexual being, and this human being.
Hmm. Yeah.
And the soul or the ghost is connected to divine source energy that is connected to everything and everyone.
Right.
And we're just here to experience life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to make the best of it. I want to explore. It's like adventure and,
Hmm.
good things. And that's what I stay focused on.
Yeah. Yes, that's great. I mean, that's the recipe. That's the recipe to awakening, is focusing on and not denying the parts inside of us. Like you said earlier, we're all kind of traumatized, at this point, by being on this planet, at this time, and through many past lives as well. At this point, so to have compassion for what we've been through, to validate, it's like, oh my gosh, yeah, it's intense, to experience this kind of sense of separation and to be in conflict with others and the dramas and all of that stuff, and then to focus on the truth of who we really are, that is the light, and that's,
We're light and love. Duh.
yeah, we're light and love. It's the love and the law, and so, to stay focused on that, and that's what I'm trying to do in telling stories about the light. But cool, hip, fun, edgy, interesting, like entertaining stories. That's because there's so many lanes of awakening, and how to wake up and be a part of the conscious evolution. A lot of wonderful teachers are talking and writing nonfiction, teachings, and doing podcasts, these kinds of things, right?
Yeah, and I'm just getting hit. I got a message, and I'm gonna send you to this platform. Find uniquely you.
Mm,
There, it's like-minded, like you and me, and there's others, but I feel like you, instructor, you can help others be able to learn how to write
hmm.
and whatnot, and
Yeah.
teach, basic, conscious writing.
Yeah, that's what I've done. I've done a lot of coaching, and my co-author and I, we are writing coaches, and we both have master's degree in spiritual psychology. So
You'd be great for this platform. They're looking for, I'm becoming a you instructor. So I'm
mm,
going over the history, the truth about our creation in order to help wake up. Like, you got to realize, here's the evidence, here's the facts, kind of thing, and just be guided that way.
mhm.
Um, but yeah, it just like came to me. I'm like, oh yeah, she needs to teach people how to conscious write.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what I'm supporting. Absolutely. I want to support other storytellers in getting out conscious storytelling, for sure, because I want to read it. That's what I'm looking for every time I turn on the TV. Every time I'm looking for something new to read, I'm looking for conscious spiritual storytelling. And
Oh,
there's so little of it.
have you ever read the Celestine Prophecy?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Girl, I like the audiobook. I'm into this like listening more than
Oh yeah. We have
I
an
like for
amazing, our audiobook's fantastic. And people compare our book to the Celestine Prophecy. A lot of people say it's like the Celestine Prophecy meets the Da Vinci Code meets ancient aliens. That's really kind of like that.
Ooh, where can I get the audiobook? Can I go on my iBooks?
Yeah, on
Okay.
Amazon. Yeah, it's on Amazon, and it's on Apple. The audiobook is on
Because that's
Apple.
where I get my books. I go and search on, and I have it on my phone. That
Hmm.
way, instead of listening to the radio,
Yes.
I'll listen to an audiobook. I got Energy Speaks from Lee Harris.
Hmm.
Um Conversations with God. Come on. I
Yeah.
had him on my show, and I was just
Straight
like,
up.
wow. God
Yeah.
Revolution.
Yeah, he's amazing. Yes, we've gotten some amazing testimonials from incredible teachers too. And so, yeah, we have people who are really loving the book. Amazing, amazing spiritual luminaries. And there's a book trailer, 2-minute book trailer on the website at awakethenovel.com. And Dan Schmidt, have you seen the Samadhi movies on YouTube? Samadhi and Inner Worlds, Outer Worlds are profound spiritual teachings. These gorgeous.
No, can you send me a link
Yeah.
on
So
that?
he's a huge fan of the book, and I got connected with him because he loved the book so much, and he created a book trailer for us. So that's really, really
I
fun.
see a motion
Yeah.
picture movie
Yeah,
coming. Yeah.
that's the main feedback we get is this should be a movie. And I've written movies. I've written screenplays as well. And the writing is always very cinematic, so it is very much like that. But again, it has to be supported because, the powers that be, it would be a stretch. It would be a stretch for them to, to do this. Now, The Matrix, that movie was, incredible spiritual teaching. So it's happening.
Oh yes.
Yeah, there are some out there. Avatar is incredible.
Oh, Avatar is the.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. So it's happening, and this would be in that vein. Very big, $100 million budget. It's space travel, all this kind of stuff. So if we can get enough people to get behind it, and this takes it it takes it to even another level than those movies, because it's about an awakened planet. It's about an awakened society, and that we can be that. So yeah, it's definitely like spiritual storytelling, spiritual fiction.
Oh
And
my
so
gosh.
Celestine Prophecy there's only a few books that fit into the category that really have made it big. Celestine Prophecy and The Alchemist are pretty much the only two books that have been breakthrough hits, right?
I'm getting hit. Okay, that's my second sign, my second message that I need to listen to the Alchemist because
Mhm.
I'm connected to it. Alchemy.
Oh yeah.
Dr. Lantinian, he was teaching, the Lantinians about that and how to transmute
Mhm.
energy.
Yeah.
So now I'm getting the elfin language, and then the alchemist is coming to me, and I'm like, okay, there's a connection to this. I can't quite pinpoint what it is, but I'm slowly getting it. So there's something to it, I know.
Well, and The Alchemist is on YouTube for free. The audiobook. Yeah, it's
Okay.
the whole audiobook. And our book is the first 7 chapters, so like an hour and a half, is on YouTube for free as well. Along with, if you look at Awake: The Legacy of Akara, you can see the book trailer, and the audio book is on there. A lot of it for free. And then there's a link to be able to buy it and download it, and or there's an ebook, and there's paperback as well. So yeah.
Oh, I'm
So
getting the audio, baby. I can't wait to.
oh, our narrator is fantastic. He absolutely nailed it. We are so happy with him, and people love him. So yeah.
Wow. I'm like so proud of you, and I'm just so like ecstatic that I get to connect with you.
Thank you
And
so
I
much.
want to continue this connection.
Yes.
And I'm a little envious, like you got to have this encounter with Kyla kind of thing. And I've been waiting.
Yeah, it
Like
was
I so want to connect with like my ET family, whoever they may be. Because
right.
I do have questions. And sometimes I'm wondering, I'm like, they probably already know that I'm so have many questions and they're not ready for me yet, kind of thing. But
Mhm.
come on, y'all.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a gift. And I have to say, like, it hasn't happened again like that. It was just one of those things that was just grace. And I'd love it to happen again. I was completely open. I have seen other ships, flying around, and for sure other UFOs, and, unmistakable signs of alien presence, but I haven't ever had that kind of encounter again. And so, yeah.
I'm
It's
like, beam me up, Scotty. I'm ready to meet y'all. Let's
really
go. You
great.
know?
I know. I know, me too. I would love to have more, but it's one of those things, just like everything on this, where it's just like, just stay open and
Yeah.
grace, grace
I
comes.
I stargaze at night. I'm like, hey, I'm here. I'm
Right.
right here just waiting. And I
Yeah.
so look forward to meeting you and talking to you and just,
Yeah.
reconnecting with you. That's what I say. What are y'all doing over there? Where are you?
I have a really funny cartoon that somebody sent me, and it's a person being a ship, and then a person being pulled up to the ship like this
Yeah.
by this magnetic, thing drawing it up to this ship. And it said, at this point, I'm going to consider my abduction a rescue mission.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I love it.
So I'm like, I can totally relate to that for
Oh,
sure.
yeah. I'm like, hello. Well, Dana, it was a pleasure having you on the show. And if I know you're going to New Mexico for 6 months.
Yes, I'm going to go down there and write a book for a spiritual teacher who runs a retreat center down there. Her memoir. I'm a ghostwriter too, so yeah, that's going to be amazing. Her story is totally incredible. Another story that needs to be in the world for sure. So,
Well, I would love to have her as a guest.
oh yeah,
So you are more than please share my information if she's interested. I would love to have her on the show. And you got to email me if you have another encounter while you're over there.
yes, oh yeah. Mexico is very well known for their encounters. They have a whole, extraterrestrial museum in
No way.
yes, they have an ET museum, and the government acknowledges completely that ETs are real and that the government they've seen them. And, I mean, they're not like us where it's like, well, we're just kind of, going to begrudgingly put out this information because all of our pilots are seeing these things, but it's like totally accepted, and happens. There's tons of sightings down there and stuff. So yeah, I gotta be open to it for sure, because Mexico really has some, and that's
Oh, I still want to go.
yeah, and that's where some of the Mayan ruins are. Like the novel takes place in Guatemala and Mexico.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's
So
right.
I have, yeah, I have a deep connection to it down there. So I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, well, thank you,
Awesome.
Kimberly. I really, really appreciate this. I'm just thrilled to have connected with you, and I
Me
look
too. I'm like,
yeah,
family member. We're
yeah,
sisters.
right. That's right. Yes.
All right, safe travels. Keep in touch, and I definitely will talk to you soon. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
enjoy the book. Leave us a review. We would love getting the reviews. You know how that goes. It's like
Oh,
social
yes.
media, post, tell your friends, put on social media, all those things. Got to create some buzz to get this, to show people what is possible in a fun way.
Oh, you definitely. I'll be blasting it all over social media, girlfriend.
Thank you, Kimberly.
All right.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, there you go. Like I tell you guys, you never know who I'm going to have on my show. So you stay tuned for another awesome episode right here with Wake Up with KC.
Let's say goodbye to all your worries about tax planning, investment troubles, and any confusion when it comes to managing your finances.